us about this guy you meet on Plenty of Fish.
It was just a simple, hey, beautiful message. And I responded back. And then we went from there. And then he told me that he was HIV undetectable. So I was like, okay, I feel heads over heels for him. And we was talking for 2 whole months before we even decided to get a hotel room, before we decided to see each other or anything. So with that being said, we got a hotel room. And he told me that he was using meth and I was still at the time using cocaine. So I didn't judge him and he didn't judge me because I didn't look like what I was doing and neither did he. So, once we started doing what we was doing, using or whatever, we then proceeded into having unprotected sex over 10 times in 4 days. On that last day of checkout, when I woke up, he was gone. A little bit over a month's timing as weeks transpired and went by. I can say that I started developing symptoms, small symptoms, like small little bumps here and there around my private area, like on my face a little bit, but I didn't think nothing of it. But little did I know, as time progressed, I could say that I had dark spots and bumps from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. I had sores in certain areas of my body. I had bumps and blotches on the inside of my mouth. My tongue was swollen. My glands were swollen. My tonsils were swollen, okay? I had open sores in my hands where you can see the white meat in my hands. And this was over a month's time and now after me and him, after the last day of checkout, this was a little over a month's timing. Okay, so in my private area, it was swollen. My private part was swollen. I had a pussy discharge that smelled like a fishy seafood boil that's been sitting in the trash can for over a week. I had open reddish looking sores in my private area that looked like they were boiling and pussy. On top of having bumps all around my private area in the front and back. When my brother had dropped me off at the clinic, that's when I called him and I was telling him everything that I got bumps around my private area, I got blotches and stuff on the inside of my mouth, I got sores. Like I was explaining everything to him and he was acting like he didn't know what was going on. He acted so clueless. With that being said, after I got off the phone with him, I went inside the clinic to figure out everything, only for me to find out that I have HIV, syphilis, herpes, trichomoniasis, and chlamydia. So with that being said, after she gave me my papers and everything, I walked out. I tried to call my ex. This man done blocked me from calling him, texting him, Facebook, Messenger, Snapchat, TikTok, Kik. Everything that we was on together, he blocked me. And from that day, in October of 2020, I have not heard from or seen this man.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Talk with Koiya. I am your host, Koiya, and as you know, this podcast is brought to you by Talk, Test, Treat. If you are in the Central Florida area and looking for a place to get tested, visit www.talktestcfl.com. Today, another special guest is joining me, and let me tell you, I found him on social media. I think it was TikTok. I think I maybe caught one of his lives, and I was like, this guy, first of all, his personality is so intriguing. I love everything about him. But then once I listened in on the live, I started hearing more about his story, and I was like, he's someone we have to get on this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Josh Burns.
Yes, hello everyone.
Hey Josh, how you doing?
I'm good. How about yourself?
I am great. I am even better to know that you have accepted my invitation to be on this podcast. So I am thoroughly excited to have you here today.
Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate you so much, and I mean that, okay?
Oh, you are very welcome. I appreciate you. So we start every episode with the Talk with Koiya card game. Since we are doing this virtually, obviously I will be the one who pull the card. I'll read it aloud, and then I want you to answer it for me. How's that sound?
Okay.
All right, here we go. First question. Have you witnessed HIV stigma? If so, tell us about it.
Yes, I have been in a situation with the stigma based upon HIV. Last year when I was in Atlanta, I was staying in a hotel, and of course I was homeless. And I came across a family that stayed a couple of rooms down from me in the hotel, and I noticed that she had kids and she was asking for food and stuff. And because of the fact that I didn't have much at the time, what I did have, I most definitely want to look out for the kids and stuff. So basically, I was explaining to her about my situation and why I was homeless because she was doing the same. And I told her I live with HIV. And because I told her that, she kind of looked at me funny and she backed away from me like, you can get HIV from touching someone, or, you can pass it from, touching someone or hugging someone or kissing someone. And I had to explain it to her that it's not that simple. It has to be taught through either sexual contact or through the use of needles. So because of that, I stepped away and left and went to the store right after I gave her like water, chips, and everything. Tell me why when I came back, like they took everything that I gave them and put it right back in front of my door. Like they didn't even want to receive it no more. And that's how bad it is when it's a stigma based upon HIV itself. Like people will literally get scared and think that they're gonna catch it from touching something that you done touched.
Wow, and how ignorant, man. Like you have nothing. Someone is providing for you, and this is your thought process?
Yes, yes, she did that. And then her excuse was is that her boyfriend's mom was gonna bring them some food. And I'm like, well, what about now for the time being? Like I did this out of the kindness of my heart for you, but I realize that you still can't help people even if you have a diagnosis, because when people are uneducated on something, they can sometimes become ignorant to it.
That's so unfortunate, Josh. Okay, let's try one more. When was the first time you remember learning about sexual health?
I learned about sexual health in middle school. I remember because we used to have a teacher that used to teach sex ed and stuff like that. But they never went into depth with sexual education like how I'm looking into everything now. They just basically talked about condoms and the different type of STDs and how you can get them, but they never went in depth with like how you really can contract STDs and how STDs can be asymptomatic, meaning that a lot of them will show symptoms or will not show symptoms at all. So that's why I first started learning about sexual education in middle school.
Okay. Yeah, which is so great for those of us who did get to experience that, because a lot of schools now are abstinent only policy, which they don't let you come in and educate kids, or they don't even give them education when it comes to sexual health, because their thought process is in order to not get pregnant or catch STIs, you have to remain abstinent. And while that is a great thing to tell kids, it's just not realistic. Everyone's not going to follow that. So now you put these kids in a situation where they're ill equipped going out into the real world making adult decisions.
Exactly. And I feel like with that, it kind of puts kids in a mindset of being rebellious because, as you get older, your mind begins to wander and, you get curious about certain things. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like kids would be better off with being taught about sexual education and sex itself than just, them putting abstinence on them. You know what I'm saying? That's going to make children even more curious to what it's like, and I feel like even though I can understand how, they would place it upon kids because no sex at all. I mean, I get that, but at the same time, when they do step out and just feel like, okay, I'm gonna go out here and do this or do that, they're not taught on the situation. They just go for what they know, so
And which is how we oftentimes lead to a lot of teen pregnancies or a lot of STIs being spread at a young age.
most definitely.
All right, Josh. Well, listen, we are here for you to tell your story, and it is one story to tell, honey. So let's hop straight into it. I want to talk about your childhood. What
Okay.
was life like for you? Were your parents strict? Were they faith based people? What was the family dynamic growing up?
Okay, with my relatives, my parents were very strict growing up. Like they were very hardworking, and they most definitely wanted to take care of us, provide a roof over our head and make sure we were taken care of. But they were very strict growing up. So, it was me and my brothers, and, we had household rules like being in at a certain time. We couldn't go to like certain parties that our friends would have or peers would have. We couldn't do a lot of things that we see a lot of the other kids do, because our mom was just that strict and worried about our well being and being influenced by other kids.
Okay. So growing up, would you say you were one of the popular kids? Would you say you were a little studious? Would you say you were an outcast? What was that like?
Okay, growing up, I always knew I was different. I knew that I was different growing up. I didn't understand at the time, of course, because I was young, but I always felt like the outcast because my brothers would do boyish things, and I would be like with my cousins, my female cousins, or my aunts, or my mom. Like I would be with the women in the family, and my brothers would be with my boy cousins playing football and all of that, and I would be with the women in the family. So I always kind of felt like I was outcasted a little bit. I always felt different. Now in school, that was a different thing. I was immediately bullied when I was in school, even elementary school, because I was soft, I was feminine, I was very emotional. So it made me an easy target.
Do you remember the first time you were ever bullied, and did you understand why?
The first time I was ever bullied. Oh, let me think about that. The first time I think I was ever bullied was when I was on the school bus and I was in elementary school. And I would remember one of the older boys on the bus would call me gay and faggot and all that other kind of stuff because of how I carried myself, how I talk and say hey and all of this and that. So I experienced bullying with like the younger kids that were like around my age or a little bit older than me. But I think that this my very first time ever experiencing it. I didn't understand like why you would pick on me, but at the same time, I just knew it didn't feel right.
Of course, and no child should ever be experiencing being bullied just because they're different or don't fit in, Such a cruel world sometimes.
Yeah.
When you were 11 years old, you were sexually abused by a family member. This person also groomed you. I'm sure now you didn't understand that it was a form of grooming, but now in your older years, I'm sure you can look back and understand that it was a form of grooming that they did, which made you believe that this behavior was okay. What happened there, and do you remember what was said to manipulate you into thinking these sexual acts were okay?
Well, yes, I can remember it like it was yesterday. I remember the very first time it happened. It was one of my older relatives, of course. They used to tell me things like, "This is how we express our love for one another. This is how we're supposed to love each other. We're supposed to keep it quiet, not say anything." And at that time, I was just so confused. I didn't know what to do, how to feel, or anything. But even though I knew inside of me it didn't feel right, I didn't have a choice but to go with it because I was scared, So that was a very very scary experience the very first time. You know what I'm saying? So I just was told that this is the way we were supposed to love each other. So I was like, okay, I guess.
Do you remember what it was that this person did?
Yes. This person used to put my hand on their private area, touch them. They used to touch me in my private area. They used to rub around my butt and all this stuff and say it's okay. I know, and see back then, my body would just be shaking because I would be so scared. And they would try to make me put my mouth on their private area and stuff like that. And it was just it was a lot. It was a lot. Okay, it was a lot, and it even got to the point to where intercourse happened. I don't think that first time, but I think the second time because I stopped fighting because I was just like, maybe if I stop, it'll just go by quicker and it'll just happen quicker and get out the way. But little did I know from a 2 day process ended up stretching out for almost 7, 8 years.
Wow, that was going to be my next question. How long did this last, and did you ever tell anyone?
Yes, it lasted for years. It lasted for years. And when I was in middle school, I remember opening up to a couple of my friends at that time about the situation because I was scared to talk about it. So I remember that when I was 17 or 18, I remember writing a letter to my parents because I didn't know. No, 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 no. As a matter of fact, I was on the phone with my best friend at the time, and I was explaining to him everything that was going on and stuff. Like we was having a deep conversation about it, and I was in my parents' room on the phone talking about it. So I remember with the window being up, I didn't know that my dad was standing outside of the window listening in on me tell my friend about what I was experiencing with this relative, right? So my dad immediately made me get off the phone. And when he came in the house, I was just sitting there so confused. My heart was beating so fast. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then my dad called my mom and told my mom to come in the room and stuff. And they asked me to elaborate to them what happened, but I couldn't. So I had to end up writing them a letter and putting the letter under their pillow just for them to read it, and when my mom read the letter, she eventually called my relative and all of that. And when people started coming over and stuff like that, my mom jumped on that specific relative. And I remember the last thing she said was, what goes on in this family, what goes on in this house, stays in this family and in this house.
And this is moments where I wish that therapy was more of a resource in the Black community because too often in our community, we sweep things under the rug and we say things like, what goes on in this house stays in our house, which makes us fearful of even speaking to anyone else to get the type of help and resources we may need. And this is a pivotal and huge time where therapy would have been great to come into play for you, but unfortunately, the Black community just is not equipped with that resource the way
Mhm.
other communities are to rely on. I'm so sorry that happened to you, Josh.
It's okay. It's okay.
You later found out, though, this wasn't just happening in your home. This was happening in other people's homes who were kids as well around you, which too made you normalize this kind of behavior.
Yes, because of the fact that when I opened up to a couple of friends at that time in school, I had like maybe two, I think it was two or three friends that told me that they were kind of going through a similar situation. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, wow, like I was like, not only is it happening in my bloodline, but it's happening in y'all's too. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like it's a lot of corruption in regards to that in a lot of households and families.
Very true. Very, very, very true. I want to go back to middle school around seventh grade. Sexual behavior patterns would begin to mimic themselves. What took place, back when you started when you were around 11 with a family member, start to mimic in your current life at the time. This time with people around the same age as you, though. Can you walk us through what started to happen there?
Okay, so where I used to live growing up with my parents, me and my brothers, okay, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Growing up with my brothers and everything, like we stayed on the same road as my cousins, and we used to go down to my cousin house and everything. And of course, the neighbors at the time were, friends of my brother, my younger brother, and my older brother. So it's like, I can say that we used to go up and down the road a lot, playing basketball, talking, mingling, doing whatever. And I can say that one day when I went over the friend's house, you know what I'm saying? It was just crazy how they had brought it to my attention that because okay, let me go back a little bit. They always knew that I was gay because the friends would always pick at me and call me names and stuff, but then we would always still kind of hang together and stuff like that. I guess this was their way of joking, but little did I know one of the friends was kind of interested in me as well as the cousin, So it's like one day I can remember like going down there and everything, and they it was like we was just outside talking, and the next thing I knew, they asked me to perform oral pleasures on them and stuff like that. And I was just like confused because I was only 13, and of course we were around the same age and stuff like that. But the first time I remember getting pushed down to the ground, I got slapped, and I remember one of them held my mouth open while the other one put his penis inside my mouth. You know what I'm saying? And that was the very first time that I've experienced something like that with them. And little did I know at that time, on top of what I was going through in my private life, I then had this situation that was an ongoing situation because after that first day, they told me I better not tell nobody and I better come down there and see them. So I started going up the street every single day because I was scared. You know what I'm saying? So I already had a situation going on, and then with them, it got to a point to where I would go down there and perform oral pleasures for them, and I couldn't say nothing about it. And when I didn't want to do it on some days, they would beat me, they would jump me, they would just go above and beyond, would hit me with belt buckles and sticks and stomping me on the ground if I didn't do what they wanted me to do.
How long did this go on?
I can say it happened for maybe a couple of months, maybe a couple of months, because I do remember that when I started opening up to friends about that particular situation, and then I started opening up to people that I thought were my friends, that's when it started spreading around the school. And, because of the fact that they didn't act on it and no one never brought it to their attention about the situation, it made it worse. You know what I'm saying? And it's like whenever I would see them after the fact of people supposedly hearing about the situation, they would still jump me, beat on me, force me to do this. And then I had to realize that even though at that time I didn't really understand, but I realized that I played a part in it too because why do I keep going out here? Because I was scared. I was young, I was scared, you know what I'm saying? So it's like after people started talking about it, I remember going to the guidance counselor about it and talking with her about everything because sometimes I would have to put on my mama makeup around my face and stuff like that to kind of hide the marks and stuff. Like when they used to hit me with the belt buckles and leave like bruises and stuff on me, I used to put my mom makeup on my arms and on my face and stuff like that. So yes. And I can say that when I opened up to my guidance counselor about it, little did I know, I didn't think that she was going to go out of her way to call my parents to inform them about everything that I told her, but she did. And that's how my parents got involved. And I think she made a police report, and then that's when I had to go through that whole process of going to court, getting ready for court and stuff like that. And I can say, I think it was like maybe a couple of months later that I went to court and everything. Because I know around eighth grade, they was not in the same school with me anymore because after the court case, they got charged for statutory rape. And I had a restriction, I had to get a restraining order against them. So they couldn't go to the same school as me anymore.
Wow. So, what was that like being a young kid having to go to court, get a restraining order? Did you have to testify? What went down?
Yes, I had to testify. I had to testify and speak up about everything that was going on. And it was a very scary moment because it was a lot of my peers, my classmate parents that were in the courtroom and everything, and everybody was getting an earful on the situation. It was overwhelming for me. I was only 13, 14 at that time. So it was very stressful and overwhelming for me because I was so young.
Did any of the bullying continue from other people, being that you were so young? I know that kids can be very cruel. So, once you go through something like that and you get back to school, what was that like?
Oh, that was a baby. I was already getting bullied in elementary school, working my way into middle school, sixth grade, seventh grade, and then that situation happened. It just made it worse. People called me a liar. People said that I was begging for attention. I was seeking for attention. None of that stuff happened to me. Then you have some people that believe me and believe that it did happen. You know what I'm saying? And then you have people that's like, "Oh, Josh, you a liar. That's why none of these people don't like you because you talk too much. You tell on everybody. You a punk. You this and that." Like I've had so many different people say so much stuff to me. But I don't even know how I managed to make it through back then, but I did.
Wow. Wow, talk about strength at a very early age, man.
Yes.
So let's fast forward a bit. Around the time you were 17, you finally gained the courage to tell friends about your sexual abuse, like you said. Your father was listening in on a conversation, and that's how you ended up writing the letter and telling your mom about this family member that was sexually exploiting you. Did that stop the abuse that was taking place?
Yes, it did. It did because I guess once everything got on front stream, then there was no need for you to try to sneak and do it anymore. You know what I'm saying? So after that time, it really did stop.
I mean, it's unfortunate that your mom had to jump on the family member. However, I couldn't imagine being a mom and thinking that's the only way I can protect my child. And then also having the rage to know that this has been going on for possibly 7 years. And you are somebody I call my family. So while I am not um, in support of it, I understand as to why the rage your mom had ended up having something like that happen. So 2017, though. You're a little bit older. You know what I mean? You are no longer young Josh anymore. You're coming into who you fully are as an individual.
hmm
This is when you were introduced to drugs.
Yes.
What was the first drug you remember trying?
Oh, the first drug I think I ever tried was Molly. I think that's what it was, Molly. I think the first drug I tried was Molly.
How did you get introduced to it?
I was living in South Georgia, and the people that I was staying with at the time, they were being introduced to it and everything. So I tried it with them, but at that particular time, it wasn't something that I got hooked on immediately because it was so much going on at that time when I was staying with the people that I was staying with. To when I moved to the next town over in South Georgia, and that's when I got introduced to cocaine.
Okay. So, Molly, then cocaine. Were there any other drugs that you tried?
Yes, I've tried crack once before. I've tried crack once before in my life. And that's the God honest truth. I tried it once. I didn't know what the hype about it was. Never tried it again.
So, from the start of 2017, when you get introduced to drugs, how long did you continue using?
Okay, I started using in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. I would say 2021 was the last time I did cocaine and Molly.
Okay. So about 2021 is when so roughly about what is that? 7 years?
Yeah, from 2017 to 2021, that was like, well, I started in 2022. So that would be like 4 or 5 years.
Four,
Yeah.
yes, thank you. Help me with the math. You can tell I wasn't great at that. My mom was, I was not. Okay, so right before 2021 though, in 2022, you met a guy on a dating app. You come across this guy, you think he's cute. Also at the time, I think it's important to note you are using drugs. You are escaping a lot of your past and things that have happened to you. You're on the go, kind of moving from home to home because your living situation with your parents is not ideal, especially as you become a young adult.
Mhm.
So there's just a lot of things going on, which I can imagine that's why you chose to escape a lot of that by using drugs. And not only that, you're longing for someone to give you fill this void that
Yeah.
you are missing inside of you, on top of everything that you have going on. So you meet this guy on this app. Tell us about this guy you meet on Plenty of Fish and tell us how it even started.
Okay, so in 2020, I would say around the beginning of 2020, I was still under the influence of using the people that I was staying with. We was in a whole different area from the last place we was at in 2017. And I remember I was just going through so much at that time because I was under the influence. Things was going on. The people around me was just showing me that they wasn't for me. So of course I be on Plenty of Fish because on there, like I used to go live and stuff before I knew anything about TikTok and all of that. In 2020, I used to be on Plenty of Fish because I used to go live and stuff like that. So it's like with my messages, I would check my messages and stuff and see who all them messaged me and stuff. And then I came across him. And I was like, okay, like, it was just a simple, hey, beautiful message. And I responded back. And then we went from there. And then he told me that he was HIV undetectable. So I was like, okay, because of the fact that you told me up front, it made me want to continue to talk to him because I feel like when you come across people and they have these diagnoses, some of the time they're not going to tell you. So I was like, for you to sit up here and be open with me and tell me in conversation of us just beginning to talk that you're HIV undetectable, it made me respect you to want to continue to talk to you. So out of all the people that were messaging me, he stood out to me the most. So with that being said, we did started talking. We were texting, we were talking and everything. We went from texting to talking on the phone, video calling every single day because I feel heads over heels for him. And we was talking for 2 whole months before we even decided to get a hotel room, before we decided to see each other or anything. So with that being said, we got a hotel room. We got a hotel room. We met up at the hotel room, right? I paid for everything. You know what I'm saying? I paid for everything. He told me that he was using meth, and I was still at the time using cocaine. So I didn't judge him and he didn't judge me because I didn't look like what I was doing and neither did he. You know what I'm saying? So when I see him in person, when I see him face to face, I was like, okay, and he keep himself up. He looked decent. He looked nice and handsome and all of that. So I was like, okay. So, once we started doing what we was doing, using or whatever, we then proceeded into having unprotected sex. And at that time, in that moment, I didn't know what I knew now back then, but that was the bad choice that I made because when I looked at him, when I seen him, like I didn't see no sores, I didn't see no signs, no bumps, no lesions, no symptoms of him having anything. You know what I'm saying? And that's what made me felt like it was okay to have unprotected sex with him over 10 times in 4 days that we spent in the hotel room together. And on that last day of checkout, he was gone. When I woke up, he was gone. I didn't, it was confusing to me at first. I was gonna say it was confusing to me at first because I was thinking like, why would you leave and not tell me anything? You know what I'm saying? But I didn't think too much into it. I didn't think too much into it. And I called my brother, had him come and get me from the hotel and whatnot. And all I can say is like a little bit over a month's timing as weeks transpired and went by, I can say that I started developing symptoms, small symptoms, like small little bumps here and there around my private area, like on my face a little bit, but I didn't think nothing of it. But little did I know, as time progressed, I could say that I had dark spots and bumps from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. I had sores in certain areas of my body. I had bumps and blotches on the inside of my mouth. My tongue was swollen. My glands were swollen. My tonsils were swollen. Okay. I had open sores in my hands where you can see the white meat in my hands. And this was over a month's time. And now, after me and him, after the last day of checkout, this was a little over a month's timing. Okay. So in my private area, it was swollen. My private part was swollen. I had a pussy discharge that smelled like a fishy seafood boil that's been sitting in the trash can for over a week. I had open reddish looking sores in my private area that looked like they were boiling and pussy. On top of having bumps all around my private area in the front and back. And because of the fact during 2020, that was during COVID, because we could wear masks and stuff like that, we had them wear masks at the time. I felt like it was okay for me to cover up and wear a jacket. So, my parents and my brother wouldn't see what was going on with me. But because of the fact that I kept having these bumps appear on my face, it kept getting worse. My dad eventually asked me, Josh, what's wrong with you? Like, what's going on with you? And I was so scared. I was like, I don't know. So I didn't have a choice but to go to the clinic to figure out what was going on with me.
At this
So
time, are you telling him, the guy who, after checkout, are you guys still in contact?
Okay, so yes, after we check out or whatever, he had a little alibi of why he left and stuff. Like he had some business and stuff that he had to take care of. Now we were still texting. After that day, we were still texting, here and there every day. You know what I'm saying? We wasn't talking as much as we was in the beginning when we first started talking, but we were still texting. We were still texting. We wasn't talking as much on the phone, but we were still texting a lot. You know what I'm saying? So I wasn't letting him know about what I had going on at the time until it got closer for me to end up going to the clinic. I think this when I told him I had like bumps in my private area or something like that. And he acted like he was so clueless to what was going on and stuff like that. And then when I went to the clinic, when my brother had dropped me off at the clinic, that's when I called him and I was telling him everything that I got bumps around my private area, I got blotches and stuff on the inside of my mouth, I got sores. Like I was explaining everything to him, and he was acting like he didn't know what was going on. He acted so clueless to everything, and he was telling me we was still gonna be together. We gonna work through this. He said we was still gonna get married. We was gonna move in together because those were the things that we were talking about leading up to me going to the clinic. So, with that being said, after I got off the phone with him, I went inside the clinic to figure out everything, only for me to find out that I have HIV, syphilis, herpes, trichomoniasis, and chlamydia. When the doctor told me that, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know what to think. It seemed like I just had this tunnel vision. Like I went into a trance. Like I just couldn't believe that she was talking to me when she told me this. I could not believe it because I was like, "You're talking to me?" She was like, "Yeah, Joshua Burns, yeah." And I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like I really didn't know what to do. I couldn't feel no type of way. I was just traumatized. So after that, the doctor ended up giving me my medicine for the trichomoniasis and chlamydia, right? And I had to go through a whole referral for me to go to another clinic in Augusta, Georgia. That took some time because she said the referral was going to take time, so she referred me to Augusta, Georgia for care, for HIV and stuff because she told me they have HIV care in Augusta. So with that being said, after she gave me my papers and everything, I walked out. I tried to call my ex. This man done blocked me from calling him, texting him, Facebook, Messenger, Snapchat, TikTok, Kick, everything that we was on together, he blocked me. And from that day, in October of 2020, I have not heard from or seen this man.
Wow. So it's safe to say he knew, for one. Two, he was not HIV undetectable like he told you he was. And he also had a host of other STIs that he was carrying around, which in return transmitted that to you. So, this is just awful, Josh. So you get your diagnosis. Obviously, your brother's waiting in the car because you got to ride with him. Do you go back and tell your brother? Do you tell your family? How do they respond? Do they ask how this happened? What goes down?
Okay, so when I got in the car with my brother, I had to tell him everything. I showed him the papers, and he immediately got angry. He wanted to fight. He wanted to fight whoever the person was, and I had to lie to him at the time and tell him that it was a girl and not a guy. You know what I'm saying? Just to kind of throw the pressure off because I'm like, as I'm sitting there letting my brother read everything, I'm like, oh my God, Josh, this is somehow your fault too because you let this happen. So I didn't want my brother to try to go above and beyond to find this person, you know what I'm saying, to try to go and hurt him. So I is eventually when I got home, my parents were in the kitchen. I gave them the paper. They asked me like what's going on. My mom get her glasses. She looks at the paper. She reads my diagnosis, and I'm just standing there looking at her and my dad, and they're like, "Josh, everything is gonna be okay. Just stay calm. Everything is gonna be okay." That was the only thing they've ever said about my diagnosis, about my situation. They didn't ask no questions. They didn't do any of that. That's all they said. Until this day today, still I never had a conversation with my parents about my diagnosis.
Now, I think it's important to note here, like we mentioned earlier, you did leave your parents' home at some point,
Mhm.
and part of the reason that you left is because you didn't feel like you had the kind of support that you needed. there was a certain way you identified with and the lifestyle that you were a part of that your parents didn't necessarily, or even family members didn't necessarily give you the type of support that you needed. So is this
Mhm.
part of the reason why you felt like you didn't want to tell them that it was a guy?
Well, yeah, because at the end of the day, like me and my dad have had situations before where he told me that he accept me for who I am, but his actions would show me otherwise. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it just I just had to throw the situation out by saying it was a girl. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like I already kind of felt that my parents tolerated me more than accepted me. You know, so it's like to make it easier for myself, I just told them I had sex with a woman. You know what I'm saying? So
Do you think they ever knew, or do you think they ever questioned?
yeah, I think they do. I think they know.
Yeah. I mean, and
Well, now of course they should know, you know, because I've been telling my story. So
you are very vocal on social media, so it will be hard for them not to know at this point. So, you contracted 5 STIs. 3 out of these are curable.
mhm,
However, if syphilis stays too long in your body, it becomes dormant. And
yeah.
because of the area you were in, you didn't have access to care as quickly as other people.
No.
So the syphilis did stay in your body a little bit longer. How long before you were able to get treatment for syphilis, herpes, and HIV?
Okay, so I remember in October 2020, I think it was kind of like the middle, somewhere in between, like the middle of October 2020 when I found out my diagnosis and everything. So after she did the referral, I know I went the rest of October, the whole month of November, the whole month of December. And then I think it was around January, if I'm not mistaken, January, February 2021, when I received treatment for HIV, syphilis, and herpes because I had to go through the intake of doing paperwork to get approved for the care, the insurance that's going to pay for the treatment and everything. So, because of the fact that I had to wait a couple of months, the system laid as dormant in my bloodstream. So,
And
even yes,
and this is why today you do live with syphilis, herpes, and HIV. I think that is a very important educational moment for people to know. The earlier you do catch something like syphilis, you do have the possibility of curing it. However, if it does stay longer in your body, which was your situation, it may be something that you end up living with long term. Did you know that, by the way, at the time? Did they explain that to you?
yeah, no, no, I don't think. No, I didn't. When I got referred to Augusta, that's when they started breaking everything down to me because the doctor didn't break that down to me about syphilis or whatsoever. So I wasn't educated on it then.
Which is so unfortunate because it's like give you the option to possibly go somewhere else, even if it's outside of Augusta, or to get a faster service so that this doesn't happen. But not everyone in the medical field is oftentimes very informative to let you know your options. But
Mhm.
yeah, okay. So, in the months that you were waiting on your infectious disease clinic to get back to you to start your treatment, did your symptoms worsen and did you have any complications within those months?
Yes, I had trouble brushing my teeth, eating something simple as cereal or a sandwich, drinking water because of the bumps and blotches on the inside of my mouth. It burned. Like, even if I brushed my teeth, it burned. Like, on my body, like with the sores and stuff and the bumps and stuff, it would burn like when I take a shower, like the soap would make it burn and stuff. So it was very hard for me. It was really, really hard for me on top of the discharge that I had at the time, it really made me very insecure. It was very hard.
Of course, you can't even do everyday things that people do. Like it's now becoming a luxury to even think about, oh, I'm able to brush my teeth. I'm able to wash my skin or put on lotion or those are things that are becoming difficult for you now. Do you remember once you finally started treatment for all 3 of these? Do you remember what the treatment was and what it was like?
Well, the treatment, basically for the syphilis, I had to go to a health clinic in Augusta, Georgia for that treatment because they were the ones that carried the penicillin. So with that being said, I had to go through an intake process at the health department, everything, and they had to send my documentation over for me to get the penicillin shot for the syphilis. So that's how I was able to get my shot for syphilis through the health department in Augusta, Georgia. Now, with the infectious disease clinic, my doctor was able to start the treatment for Biktarvy and Vasiclovir. Biktarvy I take once a day for HIV every day, and the Vasiclovir is for herpes. Both pills help keep the virus suppressed in my system. You know what I'm saying? Which makes it non-transferable if I was to decide to go out here and partake in sexual activities with someone. So I'm thankful for the medicine that I do have, and like I said, my doctor at the time was Dr. Asgar, and she started my treatment for the HIV and herpes, and then I had to go to the clinic, the health department basically, to get treated for syphilis.
And once you finally get on this treatment, do a lot of those symptoms start to subside a little?
As time progressed, yes, it did. Especially like with the dark spots and stuff. From I would say like from 2021 to like 2023, it took like a little over a year for my skin to kind of clear up the way that it is now. So just imagine me a couple of years ago now with like dark spots and bumps all over my face, like white bumps, reddish looking bumps, like all over my face. That's how I was looking years ago.
And so once you got on treatment, like you said, some of that starts to clear up. Do you go back to work? Are you able to do the normal functioning everyday things? What's life like?
Okay, so life since my diagnosis has kind of been very difficult for me because living with genital herpes is challenging. Herpes can have a different effect on everyone. And with me having genital herpes at that, I have outbreaks. Like the doctor told me, like she literally told me, you cannot stress, you cannot get upset, you cannot cry, you cannot get overwhelmed, you can't overwhelm your body, you can't overstress your body because that's going to cause for you to have a flare up, which could be a tingling, itching, or a burning sensation, which is going to let you know that if you keep that up, you're going to have an outbreak. And little did I know, yes. Ever since then, I don't have any issues with HIV at all. But with genital herpes, that's a completely different story. It's like you can't work as much as you used to. Like for instance, all my jobs I've ever worked has been fast food. So even though I had a job during my diagnosis, I could feel myself like being in pain around my genital area because of the sores and the lesions and the bumps, like when I'm having outbreaks. Especially with confiding in managers at the jobs I used to work at. Now, even though I know it wasn't my business to tell anyone my business, even when I worked, I just felt like I wanted them to kind of understand, like when I'm having outbreaks, I feel like it's best for me not to come to work, especially if I'm handling food. Knowing that I was a clean person anyway and I was always sanitary, it just it's just like when you put yourself in over stressful environments, over stressful situations, overbearing situations, it really takes a toll on your body. And with me, it's like I have back pain even more. Now, before my diagnosis, I was already having back pain, but it seemed like with herpes, it kind of knocked it up or something, because I can't get upset like I used to. Now, one of the worst outbreaks I've ever had caused me to have chest pain, caused me to shake, and 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 it's I can't even really explain it because it's just that mind-boggling. Like it really has you questioning yourself about yourself and your whole life. Just herpes itself. Like some days I have great days, and then other days I can't do as much as I used to, run around as much, work as much, because I try not to put my body or my mental in over stressful situations and environments.
You mentioned having or feeling, the personal need to disclose to certain manager and people in certain work environments. What were you met with? Were they empathetic when you told them? How did they often respond to something like that?
Well, because of the fact that I felt like, with the managers, they had to keep it on a professional level because of the fact that if they were to say something, if I were to experience something of them saying something negative, that would be discriminating, correct? So, of course, they didn't do that. So, with that, a lot of my managers showed empathy and sympathy for my situation, but they verbalized it. They verbalized empathy and sympathy, but their actions didn't show it because for certain people that I work with, my coworkers or the shift managers or whatever, for them to kind of have insight on my situation and the medicine that I take and stuff like that, it kind of made me feel like my manager was the one going around telling people about my diagnosis.
Wow.
And I've had that happen at two different jobs. And at one of the jobs, I remember I walked out because I was going in the break room to take my medicine, and I seen one of my coworkers peeking around the door. I instantly threw my bottle in my bag, put my bag on, I clocked out, and I left. They had to call the GM to come chase behind me in her car because I told them, like at that time, I didn't open up to no one really unless you were a close friend. So for people to kind of be trying to see what I got going on, that means that you have already had to been talking about it or telling someone, or you've trusted someone with this information and they couldn't be trusted, so they telling everybody about my situation. And it was embarrassing. I felt judged. I felt disgusted. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's unfortunate. You mentioned only opening up to some close friends and not everyone around you. When you did disclose to those close friends about what was going on, what kind of energy were you met with?
Oh, well, I remember opening up to two of my close friends at that time, and both of them, like, even though I talked to them separately, they started crying. Like, all of my close friends, except for one person at that time, started crying because they just couldn't believe that something like that would happen to me, and they felt sorry for me, and they didn't know what to say or what to do. Yeah, two of my best friends at that time cried.
Were there any friends who did not meet you with empathy and sympathy? Did you have any issues with people telling your business or acting a certain way in front of you, but then
Yeah,
another way behind your back? Tell
yeah.
us about that.
Yes, I've experienced that numerous of times, especially when I was in South Georgia, staying with a certain family. Like I would hear from mutual friends that they would be talking about me. They throw away the cups and spoons and forks that I use. They'll clean up the bathroom behind me, even though I do that myself anyway. And they tell people how they don't want me in their house, but I was still staying there and stuff like that. So it's like I lost a lot of people that I thought were genuinely for me, along the way. But it hurted me a little more at the time because I thought that these people really loved me. But for y'all to sit up there and never, not once, bring it to my attention that y'all were saying these things, but it seemed like people would just always somehow come and tell me, "Oh, Josh, I don't know how you still living there because they tell me that everything you use they throw away because they don't want to get sick, they don't want to catch that." And I'm like, "Oh," I'm like, "Okay, well they ain't said nothing to me, so I don't see it as a problem." You know what I'm saying? But at the time, I was so naive and gullible back then. Like, but it was what it was.
That's unfortunate. It sounds like you had to be a close friend or family member or a trusted individual for you to disclose in these people what your status was. But in 2023, that all changed. You decided to go public with your story on social media. Do you remember your first video? And can you tell us what made you want to go public with your story?
Okay, so in August of 2023, I was in South Georgia. I was in South Georgia. I was staying with a friend at that time, a so-called friend at that time. And I remember like just like she would give me such great advice on loving myself and I'm such an amazing person and all of this and that. And I don't know, like one day I just got the urge to get on Facebook. I remember it was August 2023. I got on Facebook and I just decided to go live and let everyone know about my diagnosis. And I don't care what nobody think. I don't care what nobody say. I don't care how nobody feel. I just felt it in my spirit to do it. And because of the fact that I did have so many people come across my life at that time, but it was just like I didn't have a lot of relatives, like people And see, on my Facebook, it's basically a lot of people that I grew up with, went to school with, my relatives on my mom's side, my dad's side, peers and friends and stuff like that. And it hurted me because a lot of people that didn't know me were reaching out to me, showing me more sympathy than the people that I call my cousins, my aunts, my uncles. You know what I'm saying? Even my own siblings. So it really put me in a depressive mind of state, I guess, because of the fact that I was looking for support from my relatives, for them to finally support me and tell me everything was going to be okay, but that wasn't the case. So in September and October of 2023, I was depressed. I was working at the hospital then in South Georgia, and I remember I was going through a depression, and in October 2023, that's when I wanted to unalive myself because I've just felt so depressed and unloved. So eventually I moved from South Georgia back home with my parents in October of 2023. And then December the 13th, 2023, I remember just posting a picture of myself on TikTok, and it said, I live with HIV, syphilis, and herpes. I'm living in my truth. And the next thing I knew, it was just so many people coming across that picture, coming across that, and they were like, "You live with what?" Like I just started seeing so many different kind of comments. So I was like, "Okay, well, let me share my story then." So I just decided to share my story, and ever since then, it was up from there. Like I had so many different people coming across my story, good, bad, and ugly, and I just went for what I knew from there. And, just started sharing my story, hoping that I can help other people. People see the overall purpose of why I'm sharing my story. So I didn't expect nothing to really happen the way it did that day, but it did. And from December the 13th, 2023 till now, I have been advocating and sharing my story, spreading awareness.
Do you feel like what you were longing from your family that you've gotten support from your followers and the people on social media?
In a way, I can say yes because I have come across some genuine, beautiful, amazing women and men on social media, my family, my supporters. That's what I call them because I don't like calling my family my followers, but I tell them all the time I'm so thankful for the genuine family support system that I have came across that genuinely supports me in everything that I do because I guess that's all that I was really looking for my entire life was just someone to listen to me and believe in me, because before I really didn't believe in myself, but I guess that's just something I was looking for from my parents and my relatives, was just support. And I didn't expect to get such amazing, beautiful support from so many different, beautiful, amazing souls that I've came across.
While I do love social media and I love that it gives you the ability and the opportunity to find your tribe that you wouldn't normally find in actual life, in the digital space, you get to connect with people that you wouldn't run across with in your everyday life. There is a second side to that coin. Were
Mm.
you met with any hate or were you met with any people who did not take you disclosing your status in a great way?
On social media, yes, I've had people. Oh my goodness. Like I've had people that say, that's what you get. That's your fault. You shouldn't be gay. That's why that happened to you. Your lifestyle is an abomination. That's why you're living with those diseases. You're a walking venereal disease. You're a waste of a black man. Like I've been called the worst. People have said the worst to me. People laugh at my story. People make mockery of me. People judge me. People criticize me. People have belittled me. They have condemned me and all of that. I have received the worst. Yes.
How do you deal with that type of energy on social media? Is it easy for you to block it out? Does it take a toll on you?
Well, I can't say in the beginning when I first started, it didn't bother me because my main thing was I know my status. Do you?
Hello.
A, a lot of people do not know their status, and that's why I didn't allow it to bother me because I'm like, y'all judging me based off of choices that I made in my past, which I took accountability for. But it's showing me the type of people that a lot of you are because y'all want to focus on the choices and the wrongdoing instead of seeing the overall purpose of which I'm trying to help you. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, people are very ignorant, very ignorant. And you know what's even crazier? It's our own community, the black, the most ignorant, the most hateful, the most judgmental. I'm telling you, it be our black men and our black women the most.
Which is that is something to talk about, right? Like a lot of the HIV new diagnoses are amongst black and brown people, right? We are the community that's the most harsh, yet we are the community that's the most ill equipped. We're the community that's the least educated. We just regurgitate a lot of the information we hear do out of ignorance, education, not even knowing, but it's something that we heard over here, and we'll take it back to our friend circles and regurgitate it as if it's Bible or as if it's facts. And I think that's so interesting because I feel as though if we were to come together more and operate out of love and understanding, maybe we can get some of these numbers down when it comes to our community.
And that's absolutely right. But a lot of people have been brainwashed. A lot of people, they're not happy within themselves in their own lives. So of course, when they see someone like myself, if they're uneducated on the whole matter of the fact, they're going to be ignorant to it. You know what I'm saying? And that's what it is to me. Like a lot of people that judge me, belittle me, criticize me, antagonize me based upon the stigma, the HIV stigma, STD stigma itself, like they just it's just sad to me that people will not open their minds to try to come together to understand, but they be so quick to condemn and judge and belittle you, all because they're broken themselves. You can't expect people to want to come together and do what's right when they can't even fix what's going on in their own life. So that's what it seems to me. That's why I feel like a lot of people haven't gravitated towards me in our community because of the fact that a lot of them are still struggling within their own lives, their own selves. So of course, when they come across a person like me, they're not gonna be like, oh, he's spreading awareness. I want to support him. Oh, he got all of that. That's his fault. Like you get to listen.
No, you're absolutely right, Josh. You are absolutely right. Has there ever been a time where you thought that you wanted to go back and get in contact with this person who you contracted these 5 STIs from?
Yes, I did in the beginning for like a little while, for like a couple of months in the beginning, because I was broken, I was hurt, I was upset, I was angry. Because why would you block me? Why would you block me? Like, you seemed so clueless when I was telling you everything before I went inside the clinic. But for you to just all of a sudden block me, like, I wanted to know why. I wanted to get closure. Like, why would you do this? And even if you knew, even if you didn't know, like, why would you still block me? You know what I'm saying? Like, I was that in love with him that if he would have told me and talked to me about everything, like if he would have been man enough to be like, you know what, I apologize for blocking you. I felt like me and him could have possibly worked it out. That was just how I was feeling back then. You know what I'm saying? Because I still had a lot of love for him in my heart, but it's just that I wanted to know why would you block me? If you know for a fact you didn't do nothing wrong, why?
Yeah, and it just sounds like he had a guilty conscience. He didn't want to deal with what was on the other side. So the best way he knew to deal with it in that moment was let me just block it and run away from it because I don't want to deal with whatever comes with it. And to your point, it probably wasn't even what you think that it was going to be. You know, there's a whole nother side to that coin that could have been, well, what if he actually accepts this and you guys can work through it and you finally find someone who understands you on that level versus do you do this every single time? Just a bunch of blocking, meeting up with people, blocking, meeting up and blocking. Like that can't be a great life to live.
It can, but people out here doing it. They're out here doing it.
That is a fact. That is a fact. So bring us up to speed. on where Josh is today. I know you spent a lot of your life in the South in Georgia, but to my understanding, you are no longer in the South. You are living in the big state of New York. So bring us up to speed on everything that you're doing now and what you got going on.
Okay, well now relocated to New York. I'm thankful, thanks to God. I give all praise and all credibility to God for everything. In January of this year, I actually I actually came across a couple of supporters on TikTok, and they were giving me information in regards to me coming to New York and making things happen because they have a lot of advocacy programs up here. And they have events and stuff where people come and talk to the young teenagers, the adults, young adults, about sexual education and, awareness and stuff like that. So it was brought to my attention of all the ideas and possibilities and opportunities if I was to leave Georgia and come to New York. And because of at that time when I was in Georgia, I was still going through something with my parents because I just felt so invalidated. I just felt like they felt like as long as they see me walking around and I'm breathing, they felt like I was okay. But little did they know I felt the emptiness, a void, that same void that I've been feeling all of my life with them because of the lack of support, the lack of interest, the lack of them making me feel like I have no feelings. I'ma always be okay. This what they tell me, like I'm not entitled to open up and to vent about things or to talk about things, to try to heal from it and stuff like that. So that kind of helped me with my decision making with wanting to come to New York. And thanks to God and my beautiful supporters, I was able to raise the money to be able to get here to New York to, finally distance myself from my relatives and, to be on my own, to be free, to be happy. And my overall reason of coming to New York is to become an advocate. I do sing. I've always had a dream of, singing and being in the music industry. And of course, I like acting and stuff too. So I wanted to come up here to like achieve some goals and some aspirations that I have set. So it's a lot of things that I want to do here while I'm in New York. But when I first got here, of course, I had to go through this program called HASA, which help individuals like myself with HIV, that are homeless get into emergency housing. I didn't know that New York had, these type of benefits and resources for people with HIV, which is another reason why I came up here as well. So I went through the housing situation, went into a homeless shelter and stuff when I first got here, which was completely and utterly disgusting. I left the homeless shelter, and thanks to God and my supporters, I was living in hotel to hotel until my case manager was able to help me get into supportive housing, which I'm in now. I actually stay in a studio apartment through supportive housing, and I've only been in New York for 3 months. I never thought that I would get to a point of being able to live in my own place, in my own space, but won't God do it?
Yes, he will. And I love that you give all the glory and honor to him throughout your story. I mean, you've had some traumatic things that have happened to you, and a lot of people will often turn bitter. They will turn hardened to God and all the things. And I just love that you're able to honor him and give him the glory through everything that you've been through, which brings me to my final segment, which is called Give Them Their Flowers. I want to give you your flowers for staying deeply rooted in God and keeping Him at the forefront of your life, even when the storms came. Your courage, vulnerability, passion, love, and joyfulness are a testament to the strength within you. You are living proof that even when God tries to break us, God's grace carries us through. Your journey is a powerful reminder that no matter what we face, we are never defeated when we walk with Him. Please keep standing tall, keep believing, and keep pressing forward. What God has for you on the other side of this season is more beautiful than you can imagine. He is still writing your story, and the best chapters are yet to come.
Amen. Yes, I love that.
You're very welcome. So, normally we have physical flowers that we give you in the form of cupcake floral bouquet, but obviously, since our interview is virtual, we will be sending you your gift. And I actually made yours a little bit more personable to your story and everything that you have going on. So you should be getting that later today. But Josh, thank you so much for being on our platform. Let everyone know how they can follow you, check out your content, and all the social media platforms you're on.
Yes, everyone. You can most definitely follow me. I try to use the same username on all social media platforms, but it seemed like someone beat me on Instagram, I think. But you can go on my TikTok. That's where I mainly am on TikTok because that's why I started first. You can find me at the real Josh B, which is TheRealJoshB underscore. And on and once you go to my TikTok page and you find me, you can most definitely go to a link on my page. It's a link tree, and that's where you'll find all my social media platforms, like on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. You will find me at the real Josh B underscore, and on Facebook you can find me at Joshua Burns. So I really appreciate you guys.
Yes, thank you for being here, Josh.
Yes, thank you so much, and I really appreciate y'all so much, and I mean that.